Thank you, everyone. We'll begin the meeting at 6:31 p.m. We'll start with the statement of acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge this land that we meet on today, the traditional names of the Gawler people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. As the custodians of the great Adelaide region, and that their cultural impact interest. You confirm the minutes. So we will do the second floor. Right. Okay, thank you. We'll go to the back. Any business last minute? Next. So, thank you to everyone for coming tonight as we celebrate for 2021. I haven't really got much to say tonight. I'm currently meeting with the Commissioner for Children and Youth People in the next week or so. Just to meeting and Jack and I will present the presentation. Tomorrow there's a special meeting for budget, what goes below and below, just for information, where the youth space traineeship proposal will be discussed. We can continue to go forward about that. We want to come back to that one then. Private emergency, sorry, like private emergency is being worked through update. So I'll hand over to Jay for that.
Yeah, so our last meeting, pretty brief meeting, I guess one of the things I was just about was schools, or at least I guess the main goal they were looking at was to show that there's support within young people and in the future years, I hope that we'll be able to discuss what this means for young and how either that's regional regard or sitting in meetings and that.
Thank you, Jay. All right, so we'll just take it back to item 6.2, Gawler tourism and COVID recovery from maternity. Thank you very much for inviting me on tonight to talk about tourism. Unfortunately, having a technical issue. Another one, maybe. I just slide show just the hand and stuff like that, but here we go. So I was invited on to some of the questions regarding what council is doing in the light of COVID. And so I guess I created a little presentation just to start. There we go. Technology is wonderful, isn't it? So I just created a short presentation to provide you with a little bit of context and a little bit of where we are now as well for COVID. So the COVID impact on tourism has been quite broad, pretty much the same for every industry, as well as our lives in general. So at the start, visitors information centres were closed. We had volunteers who wanted to be there but couldn't be, and we've lost volunteers as a result, and also some were concerned about being exposed to COVID as well, so a lot of them were aged as well and chose not to continue. Regional tourism now though is reporting increased occupancy. It's higher than usual pre-COVID. So some of them are reporting 63% and higher in the regions, but Adelaide is still quite heavily affected for tourism accommodation, etc. Because of that, people not travelling to the city, there's been less events and things like that, or event capacities were reduced, so therefore the levels of accommodation also reduced, etc. So it's still having an impact there. Uncertainty of the changing circumstances is also inhibiting some bookings, and it's impacting on how people book and when they book. So quite often events might look like nobody's coming up until the last couple of weeks, and then suddenly, because there's no COVID happening in particular places where the events are happening, people are jumping on and booking late. So there's lots of changes in patterns that the industry is having to adjust to. Also, events being cancelled last minute, and we just saw Western Australia, they had the footy game happening and had to cancel people actually attending. So those sorts of things are still impacting broadly. And the government's been providing some quite strong support to the tourism sector in the way of grants. And you might have heard of the great state vouchers and things like that that have been given out by the SATC. Some of it's been through ballot, some of it's come Best Rest. Supporting different levels of the tourism industry as they've gone through each different voucher. There's also been Job Seeker, which has been supporting jobs across the whole of Australia. Job Keeper, I mean, sorry. So that people can retain their employees even though they weren't trading with a profit. Things like the Tourism Development Infrastructure Fund had their level of funding boosted by actually cancelling some of the events. The government had some extra funds. And so they've popped up and built some extra grant rounds into different things to try and support the industry during this downtime with the funding that would have been spent in that sector anyway for events and things like that. So the events sponsorship has been increased as well. At the moment, the snapshot is that in the latest report through Tourism Australia, 83% of Australians feel that it's quite safe to travel within Australia. 53% are looking at travelling in the next 6 months and are actually actively looking at booking and researching their next holiday. But yeah, the cities are the ones who are feeling the largest effect. If we move to the next slide, the council's role, we'll see that with tourism, we're sort of that midline where we support across the whole range of tourism, but mainly through supporting the visitor economy through infrastructure, our policy development, and also our service delivery within the regions as well. So you can see there are things down like Visitors Information Centre, Cultural Heritage Centre down in the lower in the ground floor here. The whole civic centre just having an event space and an area that people can come and gather together. The bike hub at the VIC, things like that, are all the sorts of things that we can be involved in. So our sphere of influence is kind of that at a more local level and our impact at that local level. We move to the next slide, or tourism investment. The tourism plan was adopted just a few months before the pandemic hit. And so everyone sort of didn't really know what was going to happen there, and possibly we thought within a few weeks things might go back to normal or they might not. So things sort of rolled out from there. The government acted fairly quickly and supported grants, etc. across the nation, provided funding to councils. Some of them were competitive grants, others were just sort of allocations to councils due to the factor that they've got in the region and things like that. So councils were lucky enough to secure some funding through the local community infrastructure program, and $569,570 of that was put towards installing a lift in the Visitors Information Centre to provide accessibility to that first floor and make that building more accessible. The idea is to have an art gallery up there, and that gallery would add on to those experiences that can happen at the VIC, which is part of our tourism plan. Council also acted fairly quickly on COVID providing stimulus package of its own, so the federal government, state government, and then also local government were being very active. So in regards to tourism, our stimulus package here in Gawler provided $25,000 towards the tourism plan, which had not previously been allocated in that financial year, and also provided a 25% remission of rates to commercial businesses and individuals who were severely impacted by COVID. And some of the local businesses who were tourism operators were able to apply for that. We also provided some event support through grant funding for local community events once things were opening back up. And also the Gawler app had been being developed at the time, and council and the Gawler Business Development Group worked together to contact businesses and offer them a digital platform that they could basically move quickly with their business onto that platform if they chose, to try and allow them to have a digital space to operate in at a very cheap cost, really, for what it is. Council also provides all business development group with funds every year through a funding agreement, which is levied to our special rates. And that money is to be put towards marketing of the town and things like that. And all business development group provided $40,000 for business support during COVID as well. So tourism operators were able to access specialists in the field, so they could talk to accounting experts, people who were specialists in digitising, marketing, etc., all subsidised through the business development group through that funding. So that was fairly comprehensive work together across the region of the various groups. So tourism plan progress. As I said before, we mainly work in that sphere of infrastructure, policy, and then service delivery. So I've kind of mapped the tourism plan progress so far against those three key things. So under infrastructure, which is the next slide, we've managed to do things such as like waterfall place redevelopment has been completed, the main waterfall area. The digital wayfinding signs coming, which we've got 3 of those now, which is on the sports centre, one at the BRC, one down at Water Place. We're still having the final points happen, but they're in, so yeah. Activating the cultural heritage gallery downstairs, just enter and attend, and the volunteers have all done a great job working on that. And the heritage committee as well. We've done things like source funding for a changing places toilet development. We also did an Apex Park toilet development. The changing places toilet is a high level accessibility toilet. So what it means is people who need things such as an adult change table to be able to go out and enjoy a day and be able to stop somewhere, to be able to completely change someone who needs that sort of support. It's all available within that toilet. So that's a really great step, I think, in accessibility in our region. And we do have a lot of groups here who utilise our parks and community here in Gawler, from the regional areas as well, who need those sorts of support. So it's a really good addition, I think, to what we offer. We've also gained funding for the cycling connection between the Stuart O'Grady Cycleway and the Ross Trail. And also the Gawler East Road, you might have realised that last year there was a cycling event on that road. We worked with Oz Cycling to make sure that the road was going to actually work for their event, and gave them an opportunity to talk about some of the infrastructure and how it was set up so that we could secure that event for a number of years going forward, and still that area becomes more tough and it's less, eligible for that sort of event. So that'll be happening again. The Oz Cycling event will be happening all of this Day on October 30th this year. And we're hoping that this year, last year it was affected by COVID, we couldn't have our community aspects of that event. We were going to have a community come and try. We would actually ride the event that they were doing, the laps that they were doing on the road, which is pretty grueling from all the accounts from the riders. But you could do a come and try ride, or if you were a younger child, you could do learn to cycle sessions. So hopefully this year we'll be able to do those. So hopefully with no COVID at the time. We've also been updating the cultural heritage book signage, so there's a bit of signage replacement happening there. And we secured funding for Carbeacon Reserve Redevelopment Stage 1, which will mean that we'll be upgrading some playing fields, which will mean that we can host state competitions at Carbeacon Reserve in the future. So, and we'll be able to have A-grade baseball, which is one of the reserves and things like that. So it's working towards building those sports events in that area. So if you turn to the page of policy, in that area we've had a new planning code being developed by the state government and being instigated, and I'm still learning some of the changes and impacts of that at the moment. But really, council has a really supportive focus on future developments for tourism, such as working with investors to try and get more accommodation types within our regions. There's a bit of a gap there in that hotel type accommodation. And we've been trying to match developers, investors through the RDA, kind of connecting with the industry, like grants, and things like that, and advocating for that sort of development. And we also adopted our economic development strategy, which has the tourism council on the key things for us to deliver as part of that strategy. And it's very supportive of that investment attraction and business retention in that area. And last but not least, service delivery. We've done things such as had a photo shoot. We engaged a professional local photographer to do some photos of all the fringe events, not all of them, but a selection of them. We've got some fantastic photos to be able to update some of our brochures, use on social media and use our campaigns, things like that. And we're also going to be reshooting some of our attractions in the area. We're talking with TICSA, that's Tourism Industry Council of South Australia. We're talking with them about how they can support our businesses as well. They offer a tourism accreditation program. They also work with tourism awards every year. And on top of that, they are looking at providing service IQ workshops. And with service IQ, you can actually request a specific type of workshop that your industry people require in your area. And they will actually shape that workshop to your needs a little bit. So it might be on marketing, or it might be on connecting to trade events and tourism trade events and things like that. And we can get a specialised sort of workshop for our needs. So we'll be talking with them on that one. As I said, we've been advocating for further accommodation development, trying to sort of build that tourism offering, and also some volunteer recruitment, which is something that some of you around the table may want to think about. And the IC at the moment, we do look to volunteers. There's going to be a little bit of an upheaval while we're installing the lift, but the IC will have to just temporarily relocate while we get that construction completed, and then move back into that space again. So, yeah, it'd be really great to see some young faces over there helping out. So if you know anyone, that any of your friends, etc., might be interested in tourism or are really interested in digital space as well, because it'd be fantastic to have some volunteers who have some digital skills and can help with things like being newsletter out to our tourism operators, can help with social media promotions and all those sorts of things as well. And we're also looking at what we do with website information connecting through website in the future as well. So that's part of our tourism plan. And at the moment, we're also seeking funding for cultural mapping of the Gawler cultural sites along our rivers. We've put in a BPRF, that's Building Better Regions Fund application to seek some money to try and get some consultants to be able to do that work for us. And that will help us not only identify sites that are great for tourism, but it's also going to assist us in how we care for those sites going forward, and maybe identify sites that we don't, or the government people don't really want us to have accessible to the public, and we can protect them in some way as well. So it's just in that. And we're also supporting operators and communicating with operators a little bit more. So we're developing a database to be able to do that tourism newsletter out to our local people, and also we're having tourism on May 24th, and we'll be helping our tourism operators tap into the power of the Australian Tourism Data Warehouse, which helps them sort of put their market out, put their information out to the market and maximise their exposure on sites like Tourism Australia, etc. So that's coming up on the 24th of May. So at the moment, we, I guess the tourism, we started to kind of have tourism-led role within council. There's only a couple of us. So I'm a special projects officer. I work on grants across the whole of council. I'm also working on projects like boundary reform, worked on the development of the economic development plan, etc. And tourism is also sort of in my life with the economic development. So we don't have a direct tourism officer for doing this sort of delivery. We have Lynette Ansell at the Business Information Centre, who runs the BRC, and she runs all the volunteers there, does a great job training people up and keeping that place ticking over and keeping our exposure up there. But yeah, we don't actually have a tourism officer as such, which would be great in the future if we can move towards that sort of thing, but that'll be up to council's decision. It's just, we've got a lot of ideas and a lot of stuff to deliver. It's not always easy if you haven't got a couple of dedicated resources doing those sorts of things. So yeah, are there any questions? I ran through that pretty quickly, but
yeah, I've got a few questions. The first one is whether this tourism plan is more aimed towards domestic tourism, and whether the plan would either have to be redeveloped or adapted to suit a post-COVID.
okay, so the plan was actually developed before COVID. We didn't even know it was coming. So at the moment, I would say Gawler's tourism capability is low because we don't have a lot of commissionable product that we can package and sell, which is easier when you're dealing with the overseas market. It's a lot easier to package something up. You've got to sell it through a trade sale than sort of trying to promote the work. So, so we kind of call that, kind of the version on getting to that point where we can actually package things and make it commissionable so other people can sell us for us, which is the best way to go. So at this stage, the plan itself does have aspirations towards tapping into that cruise market and things like that. People are coming to Adelaide and want somewhere that has something to do, so we want to be able to tap into that in the future. But until we've actually got those commissionable products, it's really hard to do that. So this plan more is based on building our capacity. So it is based, I guess, on our strengths at the moment and what we want to aspire to, and build that capacity so we can get to where we can really set ourselves up and put ourselves right out there. That kind of answer. All right for you? Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yes, I think I've got a couple of questions in relation to, well, I've had a look at some of it, specifically in relation to the KPIs. So, so from the what's called the macro perspective in here, the plan looks at the tourism expenditure and the growth as a whole. I guess what I was wondering there is whether that's that way only information which is available to us. So do worry that might not be consistent with the substance of what the plan is trying to achieve, but also if they're looking for return on investment in Gawler, hard to measure.
Yeah, and I guess our difficulty there at the moment is that SATC report on region based only. So getting a breakdown of anything more detailed at our local level is just not, we don't have the capability unless we start collecting that data ourselves. And until we've got some resources, it's really hard to collect that data. So we do a little bit of collection of data through the BRC. We collect the numbers, we collect where they're from, those sorts of things. But when it comes to actually tracking tourism spending and all that, it's actually quite difficult. We could do it in relation, if we have an event in Gawler, we could poll, do basically some market research and poll people who attend the event, find out roughly what they've spent, how long they've stayed, and those sorts of things. So we could do that sort of thing. does cost money, and there isn't money allocated at this stage for that. But in the future, it's useful to get those sorts of figures. But when the plan was developed, it was kind of what information is out there that we can tap into, and unfortunately, it's on that regional base.
Yes, so also, I was wondering, there's, plan also makes mention of how the Gawler, using information, centre, leading tours, local tours. I was just wondering if there's anything in place at the moment, that is of that nature, whether it's like tours or whether that's, an aspiration as part of the plan.
So for History Week, they do have some tours planned and looking at booking those. In the COVID situation, of course, it's all, how do we plan this and putting our COVID management plan around this, etc. But there are definitely the heritage tours happening. We do have some training guides through the BIC to do certain tours, but they were stopped during COVID, but they're mainly around the heritage around the area. And then, of course, there are tours, commercial tours that are set up to do things like outdoor tours and things like that for the commercial entities. But yeah, through the BIC, it's basically our own tour guides doing that. But yeah, if you have any ideas on what sort of tours you think young people might be interested in, I mean, not that you will be interested in heritage, there's some really interesting stuff in Gawler to check out and learn about the history of the area. It's so old in Australian sense of old anyway. Local stuff. But I mean, if you go back through the Gawler heritage, if we can map some of that cultural heritage as well a little bit more and be able to present that, we've got a certain bit of that story presented at the moment. But there's opportunities to develop that even further, and that, going back to the thousands and thousands of years that went to, really important as well. So tours along those sorts of lines in the future, I'd like to see some stuff developed along those lines. Of course, in consultation with the kind of people who, want to tell us what those stories are and how they want them told, or who should be telling those stories as well. That becomes, a little bit more difficult in navigating. The SATC have just created an Aboriginal engagement strategy in how tourism operators, etc., should work together with Aboriginal people in their areas around those sorts of things. So some of the faux pas that might have happened in the past where people have, possibly gone out telling stories that they shouldn't have or whatever because of the cultural aspects. So that some of those things can be set up properly from the start and make sure that we're respectful of their culture and what their culture requires. So yeah, there's a lot of work to be done in that space.
One thing that comes to mind, there's also digital storytelling. And probably a lot of people are QR code aware, and that's something I was also going to ask, but it may not that way yet. But is there anything for a sort of digital approach to storytelling on top of that with the BIP?
So I know there was some talk with one of the heritage groups around QR codes and things last year, or just before COVID. I'm not sure where that's at, so I'm not sure whether that's productive. I can ask for you and send a bit of information back through the committee for you. But definitely, yes, digital storytelling, I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's so cost-effective and would be so far-reaching. So definitely would be happy to do that. We are looking at the moment at some video storytelling as well. So just trying to capture some of the essence of Gawler in videos, maybe seasonally as well, different seasons, that sort of thing. We've seen some places in the world that actually really has seasons, if you know what I mean. So it's something that really does change the face of Gawler throughout the year. So we are talking about that at this point in time while we're building out, photo library and digital library in that sense. So yes, definitely we would like to embrace that in the future. Does anyone have any other questions before I take this?
So you briefly mentioned advocating for further accommodation development. And I'm just wondering how big of a part that plays in the tourism plan, given that Gawler is sort of recognised as a gateway to the Barossa, with the Barossa being one of SA's bigger pools of tourism. And yeah, whether that accommodation development is a big part of the plan or if it needs to be a big part.
I think the plan kind of takes into the fact that we have to work with what we've got at the start, but it is definitely something to advocate for in the future. There are people interested in increasing that accommodation gap, that hotel motel type gap. So I think it's just about at this stage, council can't go and pay for anything like that. It's up to private enterprise to bring that in. And so at this stage, it's just an advocacy role and trying to connect the right people in. So making sure that the RDA are aware of who's looking at doing expansion or a new development, etc. in that way. Trying to connect them with people who will help with investment and those sorts of things. So it's about connecting those dots at the moment. I think if we're going to advance to being more than a gateway, I think it's about how we position ourselves, and the tourism plan itself does identify we want to be a destination. That is where we want to be. We don't just want to be a gateway to the Gawler Valley. So in the future, we are looking at being the destination. But that takes a bit of time and resources to get our story out there and get our message out there that we've got more than people think. Because quite often people think, oh, the way that Barossa, I'll just stop here. They don't really get to see the story if we're not putting it out in front of them and passing through. So, we're losing that sort of capture. But it's all about resourcing, time and investment on putting that story in out there. And it's also about people who are already here in Gawler recognising the value of tourism. You can be a tourist in your own backyard, and then you can, when you've got friends and family visiting, you're our advocate. You're our people who can speak the story of how great Gawler is and what there is to do here. So identifying what you love doing and what you love doing with your relatives can actually also really help us sell Gawler as well. One of the digital strategies that we've identified in the plan is getting CGU. It's basically generating information from our local people experiencing tourism events or people who are out there doing something for us that citizen generated upload to the internet saying, wow, I'm great, Instagram and the fact that you're in Gawler doing X, Y, Z, whether it's at a fringe or one of the shows in the civic centre or whatever, and getting that sort of content up out there on the digital space so that Gawler gets a little bit more well known, and maybe creating that hashtag visit Gawler or something like that. I don't know if there's another cool random thing that we could come up with, maybe that's something that could help us with. But what would our hashtag be to put ourselves out there and show people what there is to do in Gawler? It's one way of being captured on the internet where it can all come together under one hashtag and people can kind of say, wow, I didn't realise there was so much on, didn't realise there was so much to do.
Thank you. Just like one more, right? Absolutely. If Alex is finished, I'll ask for Isaac's last question.
Okay, cool. Just last question. The dedicated Gawler tourism website.
And that would allow us, I was talking earlier about the tourism forum happening in May, having the operators learn more about how to use the Australian Tourism Data Warehouse to its optimum. If we want to be able to utilise that warehouse ourselves to be able to promote Gawler and what we have that people can book and all that commissionable product that we're going to develop over time, then we have to have a website that is dedicated to tourism, because you have to either be a destination or a tourism website to be able to tap into that data warehouse and pull that information through. If we just a council website, we actually can't access that. So we need to work that through.
And so, final question would be that, this is obviously very, also, first part would be, is there still consultation happening as part of this plan, other than the consultation that council does, and how does council plan to condense that into a format which beneficial for consultation and stakeholders as opposed to detailed plan?
So consultation generally, I mean, the plan itself has had a community consultation, actually had about 3 phases of it during the development of the plan. But since then, because we're engaging with tourism operators, we've said we're going to engage with them 4 times a year. Definitely within those priority areas that we've developed, those key areas, feedback could be taken on board, projects can be looked at. We definitely have that community feedback through that forum. Also, locally, if there's groups who are interested in, looking at developing traditional product, working on developing heritage or arts events or workshops or things that we could look at developing further for tourism opportunities, then, anyone can come forward and start talking with us and we'll see where it leads. I guess consultation-wise, the plans for 2024, so any full-on official consultation process would be happening again at that time when we're looking at developing the new plan. We didn't actually set a review period in this plan of like an annual consultation or anything like that, but we do, we've been doing business surveys and things like that along the way, so there is opportunity there for people to feed into us through that as well. But yeah, we're quite open. We're looking at through the economic development strategy as well. There's a Main Street working group looking at being developed through that as well. And so we'll be having some interactions with businesses through that as well to see what we can maximise that way as well. So there's lots of different ways that people can feed in without it being an official consultation, if you know what I mean. So happy to receive any sort of input or discussing opportunities as we go through.
Just quickly, you mentioned the employment of tourism officer. So just quickly, at which point of the plan is that necessary to occur?
It's a tough one. It's a tough one. I mean, if we had one from the outset, we might be a lot further along. But at the same time, COVID impacts, we know how much further we could go on. It's one of those chicken and egg things. I think the tourism plan has got some key things that we could pursue in the short term without that application. I think a lot of the long-term development parts, when you go through the action plan at the back that identifies long-term things, a lot of those, without a dedicated resource, we won't see them by 2024. It will take longer. Just because of the amount of things that council is also doing, there's just a lot of infrastructure projects happening. There's a lot of the boundary for the project itself. If that proceeds to an investigation stage, that could be a massive amount of work for council just to keep up the investigators' requests. So things like that are going to impact. So without a dedicated resource, this is not going to be the highest priority for my role, particularly. And as I say, as a head school running the VIC, so I guess it's that the longer term ones that are going to be the hard ones to hit without that dedicated resource.
So I just want to clarify quickly, sorry, but yeah, so is that the priority that has been submitted for this draft budget, or is that going to that?
It hasn't gone into this draft budget. No, there was an economic development person who would do economic development and tourism suggested in the early rounds of budget bids, but it was moved below the line, I think, the first cut. So didn't make it through to, I don't believe it made it through to the councillors themselves. I believe it was executive going, well, this is what we can do. And it sort of, with all the other priorities in mind, it didn't make over. Something that is in the budget this year is, I believe it's still there at the moment, but of course it's going to council tomorrow, I believe, for them to ratify if they wish it's, if they think it's ready to go out for public consultation. Something that is in there is FT for a digital media person to assist in that social media space and that marketing space. So that would be an added bonus for this plan and speed up some of the delivery of some of the actions in this plan.
All right, thank you very much, Kirsty, for your presentation. I'm sure we'll have any questions. So we move on to item 6.4, which is the youth advisory panel update. So one of my new responsibilities as chairman is to go along with the people on the advisory panel. We had our first meeting last Tuesday, and we mostly got to meet everyone. So there's representatives from some of the schools involved, so Trinity, Xavier, Mock, St. Patrick's, Gawler District College, and then myself representing that. The main topics for the discussion that we listed for the whole year are quite large topics, include mental health, specifically post-COVID, tackling unacceptable behaviours from a young age, with 50%, bullying and inclusion of different families. So there's a girl there, sorry, who was mentioned, the Northern Adelaide, but I have the adult learning design. So there was one of the representatives that is the daughter of someone who is in the meeting. And it's very passionate about more is feels very strongly about debate and including all programs going to the ground. So that's one of the voices of so that was our meeting, so we just started what we just talked about and move forward and then we update I quite glad So we have actually implemented a wait list program. So obviously it will be at the moment here, so it's new community. That's Hannah, that's not racing, and TNT. We also have the book, which was fantastic things and training. It was really great to speak to Lena about the TNT and that program as well. And then also have planning is obviously unbreakable what the a really good step in that format and people intent, maximum. It's great feedback from organisers and public intention on the day. It was great to see that we had lots of things happening, but it's great to have our young wider and schools online. It's really quite huge. And thank you for having me. Some of the feedback that was posted by on course, so making progress of female skaters, seeing change more of the skills and have a great time. And another one, obviously, was the first for us last year, the first place, and another person said, well, that wasn't that skate park, which was really awesome. So that was really nice. That's up on their website. It was really nice to see that feedback. Around and stay with what's right. We did the next thing is that Jack up to that, and then each other, up to that rate is required, and that's what they do on the Friday and Thursday. Very next one. And we have a Tuesday and we will be mining the well. currently collating all that information and we will obviously bring it forward as soon as we can. And we need to now go back to, sorry, the young sports and dance award or arts award. We do have one application, sponsorship program. We have one application, so I'd like to look forward to meeting that Seth Taylor has applied for young sports person sponsorship program for $100. So Seth is involved. He has previously had the award in financial year before, not in this financial. A resolution is put forward that the Gawler Advisory Committee recommends to council that Seth Taylor receive $100 from the Gawler Sport Versus Scholarship Program for his state representation in hockey. Is there any second, please? Angus and Alex? All those in favour? All those in We will move on to item 6.6, which is youth accessibility to transport update. So I'm going to Isaac to that one.
Thanks, Renee. So where we are at the moment, we've had this typical minor setbacks with that one. I believe this stage we have surveys ready to go, there's a media release ready to go. We've taken photographs for that. We also have Jack has prepared a QR code as well, so that's all ready to go. We did have one issue with the approach that we were going to take media release, but I think we've passed that now. Another small issue we went to was, of course, the timing with school holidays as well. So now the school has resumed return to, we put that out hopefully sometime in the next 2 weeks, and get the ball rolling there. It has taken a little while. Hopefully very soon we will start to see some media traction from that, and we get some feedback to our survey. But in the meantime, there has also been changes to transport itself with the Gawler line, construction being extended again. There's also been some issues, some more issues there with the construction of the line itself. So at this point, we're looking at before Christmas this year. There has also been a new service added since our last meeting, I believe, which was expressed to Adelaide via the freeway. So that takes much shorter time now, but that is limited to before 7:30 in the morning. Can't that. Well, that's all.
Thank you, Isaac. We'll move on to item 6.7, item subgroup update. I'll give it time to that one, please.
So, I once had a workshop. I involved with race. So that was the and we had someone from services come down from design and that's something that's yeah, and bike safety comes down to talk to us about bike safety and placement of equipment for road safety on bikes rather than the management. There was a half an hour call with capacity group who they're 39 out of 40. So I think there can be one person who wasn't able to attend, because a worrisome back. So yes, it went extremely well. I think those are probably good. Otherwise, it's very successful.
Wonderful, thank you, Angus. Now we have item 6.8, the youth space-based traineeship program, Dr. Gawler.
Through the chair, and the next there is a special campaign timeline to discuss the budget. The representatives will discuss what's in the budget and then put it out for public consultation as part of that discussion. You raise traineeship fees because it's in the budget consideration. And so even not paying to say what we're above the line or below the line, and they think the above the line and those are the choose to come. We'll go out for consultation regardless, for comment from the committee, will come back in that June. So if you're interested, watching YouTube tomorrow night, there's consultation about it, but I will give you
A question on that. So, we had apologize for the BBC to send out those sort of things after getting back in the budget item. Those are all published, but haven't been sent out yet. Is it still worth sending those to elected members because this is the final draft of the budget which they're discussing, or give another vote which should change that?
through the chair. So my thoughts would be obviously the budget is finalised and the elected members will get feedback in that time. So certainly it's an opportunity to send them correspondence, but you can get
I would consider the discussion at future meetings. Questions to the others?
Sorry. Statements that the
We now have Alex and his wife, as well as Jane myself on the document. So, questions to that then? Oh, sorry, okay. You have a question? Yeah, go ahead. So information about the house tax that they said for the information tax. Questions to that?